Hello friends, this video on Principles of Inheritance Part 41 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now let us talk about the various types of genetic disorders. Now we will make use of pedigree charts when we talk about the different types of genetic disorders. We will see how a pedigree chart can show that this genetic disorder might be present in this family. Now broadly there will be two categories of genetic disorders. One is Mendelian disorders and the other one is chromosomal disorders. Now when I say Mendelian disorders, it has something to do with the Mendel's rules of inheritance. And when I say chromosomal disorders, they have something to do with the change in structure or number of the chromosomes. So let us start with Mendelian disorders. So here these disorders happen due to mutation in a single gene. Like how we had gene mutations, right? So where the gene mutation, wherever they affected one particular gene, so which we call as point mutations. So these kind of disorders, the Mendelian disorders, they happen due to mutation in a particular gene. So they do not affect the entire chromosome as such. So inheritance pattern is similar to the principles of Mendelian inheritance, and that is why they are called Mendelian disorders. So obviously it has to have some similarity with Mendelian inheritance because the way it is inherited from one generation to the other, that is very similar to the way Mendel's rules of inheritance talks about genetics. Some of the examples of Mendelian disorders are haemophilia, sickle cell anemia, phenylketonuria. So these are some examples of Mendelian disorders. We will talk about each of these disorders and we will see what causes them and how can we get to know about them through a pedigree chart. The second type of disorder that we have is the chromosomal disorder. This happens due to abnormal arrangement of one or more chromosomes. Now, either the number of chromosomes becomes abnormal, it becomes either less or more than what is expected, or the structure of the chromosome changes. So due to some issues with the chromosome, these type of disorders occur. Some of the examples are Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome. Now all of these syndromes have been named after the person who described the syndrome for the first time. That is why they have got so fascinating name, because it is named after the person. So we will talk about each of these disorders which we have mentioned on this slide, and we will look at their cause, their symptoms and their pedigree charts. So let us start with hemophilia. So let us look at hemophilia. So hemo is the word which is related to blood. So some issue with the blood in this disease. So let us see what happens here. So it is a blood coagulation disorder. What do we mean by blood coagulation disorder? In this disorder, the blood does not coagulate. So even what happens if your blood coagulates? So when your blood coagulates, if you get a small cut, what happens? It bleeds. Suppose you've got a small cut on your finger. So what happens? For the first few minutes, your finger bleeds, but after that, the bleeding stops. Why? Because a blood clot is formed there, which stops the bleeding. But in case of this disorder, if a small cut has occurred, the bleeding will happen and it will keep on happening. It will never stop. So blood coagulation doesn't happen correctly, and that is why we say that it is a blood coagulation disorder. Now, why this disorder happens? Due to the reduced activity of the coagulation factor. There are various proteins which act as coagulation factors. They help in the coagulation, right? So when their activity gets reduced, that time coagulation will not happen properly. So in this disorder, a particular protein in the group of proteins which is responsible for clotting gets affected. Now, who affects the protein? The protein gets affected due to some issues on the genetic arrangement. So proteins involved in blood clotting is affected, therefore clotting doesn't happen properly. This is a sex-linked recessive disease. Now this is a sex-linked disease. That means the trait, that means the gene which is responsible for the synthesis of this protein, this particular protein, is located on the X chromosome. So whichever gene is located exclusively on the X chromosome, for which there is no corresponding allele on the Y chromosome, that is known as a sex-linked disease. And this is also a recessive disease. So why sex-linked? Because the allele for this particular, the allele or the gene which is responsible for the synthesis of this protein, which in turn affects this blood coagulation factor, is located on the X chromosome. Now, as we know, Now, as we know that females have the sex chromosomes in females have XX, right? So this is how the female sex chromosome look like. So now, if one of this X is XH, then what will happen? It will become XXH. So in this case, can you tell me whether this is going to be, whether this lady will be affected with haemophilia or she will not be affected? She will not be affected. She will be normal. Now, if the lady is XX, then definitely she is normal. But if the lady is XH, what does that mean? This is the recessive condition, right? That is, both of them have recessive. So, which is the dominant trait here? X is dominant over X is dominant over XH. XH means hemophilic X. So, which carries the gene for hemophilia. So, X is dominant over XH. So, if X and XH are present together, then the lady will be normal. But if both are XH, in that case, the lady will be hemophilic. Or we can say the lady will be affected. Right? But this is present only on the X chromosome. So, in case of males, there are just two possibilities. Males will not be heterozygous. In males, either they will be XHY or they will be XY. So, if they are XHY, that means they are affected. If they are XY, that means they are normal. So, the scenario is quite simple in case of men. But in case of women, there can be three situations. They can be normal, they can be heterozygous normal, even though they look normal, but still they are carriers of the hemophilic gene. So they are still carrying the diseased gene, right? So this is how it is. So that is why this disease is sex-linked and recessive. Why recessive? Because the individual is affected only when it is present in the recessive condition. That is, both of them are present. So now let us try to look at the pedigree analysis for hemophilia. So how do we prepare a pedigree analysis chart for hemophilia? So let us look at the pedigree chart of hemophilia. Now we will consider different cases where a father can be affected or a mother can be affected, or both are normal or both are affected. So we will look at various scenarios to see what kind of offsprings are being produced in various cases. So let us first consider case 1 where we say that the father is normal but the mother is affected. So in this case, what will happen? So the father is normal, that means father has XY, but the mother is affected. Now a female is affected only when it has both XH, right? So this is the scenario when a female is affected. Now when these two mate, what happens? What are the various possible options? Now here you see, there are two options which this can contribute, because right now we are talking about only the X chromosomes, right? The sex chromosomes I mean. So the father can contribute either X or Y, mother can contribute either XH or XH, right? So what are the various possibilities? This can combine with this, or this can combine with this. This can combine with this, or this can combine with this. So with that we get, it can be XXH, or it can be XXH, or it can be XHY, or it can be XHY. So these are the various possible options. Now these two will be males. Now males with XH, that means affected males. So they are going to be affected males. What about these? These are going to be females, but females are affected only when both of them are XH, right? Because it is a recessive trait. So all these will be normal females. Right? But these females are normal, but still they are carrier of the hemophilic gene. So they are normal females, but they are carrier of the hemophilic gene. So if you prepare its pedigree, this is how it will look like. So this is the affected mother, this is the normal father. So when they mate, there is a possibility that all the males will be affected. You see, all the males are affected. What about the females? The females are neither normal nor they are affected. I mean, they are normal in the sense that they are not affected, but they are carriers. So here in this diagram, I have shown the carrier female with a grey color. So these are the carrier females. Now what is the advantage or disadvantage of carrier females? Now, if a female is carrier, that means even though the female carries the hemophilic gene, but she is not affected by the disease. But there is a possibility that she can transfer the disease to her offsprings. Now that is what we will see when we will consider the case when we will take a carrier mother. Okay, so for now let us consider the second case where we say that the father is affected but the mother is normal. So in this case what will happen? The father is affected, so the father is XHY and the mother is normal. So let us assume that the mother is XX. So the mother is completely normal. So in this case, the father can contribute either XH or Y. The mother can contribute either X or X. So the possibility of combinations are all these. So what do we get out of it? It can be XHY, it can be XHX, it can be XY or it can be XY. So these are the possible males. So the males are going to be normal. So see, even though the father was affected, but the father did not pass the disease to his son. This is an example of, yes, crisscross inheritance. Now since it is an X-linked disease, so it was not directly transferred from the father to the son. But the same gene was transferred, could be transferred to the daughter. So if you see here, if you look at the daughter, however, they are not affected because they have got a normal gene from the mother, but they are carriers. So the daughters are carrier. I have wrote it by mistake as well. So this is a carrier. So the daughters are all carrier and the sons are all normal. So in this case, if you see, the sons are all normal, but the daughters are all carrier. So the probability that a daughter will get affected, that is less. But at the same time, the probability that a daughter will be a carrier, that is always more. So being diseased with haemophilia, that chances are less for a female, but being a carrier of haemophilia, that is quite high for a female. So let us look for some other cases. Case 3 where we say that the father is normal but the mother is carrier. So normal father and carrier mother. So normal father will be XY and carrier mother would be XHX. That is, it carries one hemophilic gene but it is not affected with the disorder. So the father can contribute either X or Y. The mother can contribute either X, H or X. So what are the various possibilities that can happen with these? So these are the various possibilities. That is, it can be X, XH, it can be X, X, it can be XHY or it can be XY. So here if you look at it, the females, none of them are affected as such. Both are normal. But 50% of the females are carrier and 50% of the females are normal. Similarly, if you look at the males, 50% of the males are normal and 50% of the males are affected. So here if you see, the father was all normal but still the son became affected. Why? Because the mother was affected. So mother passes on her traits to the son directly and the mother can doesn't pass on to the trait to her daughter. So the daughter will get the disease when both the father and the mother are affected. So which is a comparatively rare scenario that both the husband and the wife, they are affected with hemophilia. So in this case, what happens? The mother is a carrier. So you have an option that 50% of the male will be affected and 50% will be normal. Similarly, 50% of the female will be normal and remaining 50% will be carrier. So they will not be affected. Let us look at the last scenario where both the father and the mother are affected. So in this case, what will happen? Father will be XHY, mother will be XHXH. So in this case, the father can contribute either an XH or a Y. The mother can contribute either a XH or a XH. So the various combinations that can happen from this are somewhat like this. So you get XHXH, XHXH, XHY or XHY. So in this case, if you see, all the males and the females, all the sons and daughters, they are all affected. So I think this is the first scenario that we came across where the daughters are affected. So the daughters get affected only when both the parents are affected with the disease. So the possibility of a daughter being affected with hemophilia is quite less when compared to a male. But at the same time, most of the males, a male can never be a carrier for hemophilia. The male will either be a normal or it will be affected. But a female can be a carrier. That is, she herself is not a patient, but she herself is not diseased with hemophilia, but she is a carrier of the hemophilic gene. So she has the ability to pass it on to her next generation. So this is how you see the pedigree charts can actually help to find out how the next generations would be. And here we have taken small examples, right? But if you try to prepare a chart for entire family where you are talking about 5-6 generations, so there just to maintain it manually is very difficult. So if you have a proper systematic representation, it becomes very easy to understand and analyze it. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.